Welcome to the Pursuit of Growth show, where we hold candid conversations with fascinating individuals from all walks of life to learn about their passions, successes, failures, lessons learned, and how they apply personal growth to their lives. We'll end this conversation with key takeaways that we can all implement to better ourselves and the lives of those around us. I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Brinkley. What's up, Greg? How's it going?
Man, it's going well. And Sammy, I'll tell you what's up once again. I am super excited to introduce our special guest for today's show, Miss Melissa Marks. Melissa, how are you doing?
So good. So good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Melissa, I'm going to read your bio, and it's one very interesting bio, and I cannot wait to talk to you about your story and about what you do. So without further ado, Melissa Marks is the Chief Mindfulness Officer of Your Mindful Edge. She primarily coaches people who feel they can't stop thinking, high performers, and anyone ready to live more fully in their why. She provides a balanced approach to meditation and mindset training to empower people with tools to become even better at reaching their goals. Melissa started her mindfulness practice 22 years ago as a 24-year-old burned out real estate agent in New York City. She has been teaching and coaching meditation since 2005 and is also a frequent presenter at many executive meetings and conferences. Melissa will be joining season 2 of the new reality series, The Social Movement, where 6 teams try to solve global problems in 4 days, available on Amazon Prime. Melissa, right out of the gate, I've got to ask you, tell us, what is mindfulness?
Well, again, thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Mindfulness. What is mindfulness? It's very simply awareness of what is in the present moment without judgment. We can talk a lot about what that is. I mean, we're not going to just stop right there, but just like those components, paying attention to what is without our bias coming in, awareness of things as they are, not perhaps as we would like them to be, removing the lens of our bias when we're engaging in something to fully experience whatever that thing is in its fullness. Or go ahead.
So I was going to say, I want to explore mindfulness in so many ways.
Sure.
Can you share what mindfulness isn't? Because I think so many people have a big misconception on the definition of mindfulness and what actually it is and how you implement it in your life.
That's a great question. You know, I don't think anyone's ever asked me what it is not, but I love the contrast so that we can really highlight what it is. So kudos to you for an awesome question right out of the gate. Lack of awareness, right? The biggest thing about mindfulness, and perhaps one of the biggest misconceptions, is it's when we're too busy to pay attention. We're either circling in the thoughts of the past or the future, which takes us out of this present moment, this moment that the three of us are sharing. This is the only thing that exists, truly, this moment. And we're alive and we're connected and we're engaged. That's mindfulness. Let's say Sammy over there was on his phone. Sammy, I know what you're up to back there.
Guilty.
Distracted, right? Multitasking, thinking about, oh my God, everything Sammy has to do after this podcast. That would take Sammy away from full awareness and engagement in this moment.
How often, and I love that explanation there too, because obviously being somebody that coaches people and that teaches people about this, how often do you find yourself like saying like, I need to recenter, I need to I've gone beyond, I am not being mindful?
All the time. All the time.
So we're not the only ones. Okay.
Oh no. That's the most honest thing you can do when working with somebody. There's oftentimes this I love my one-on-one coaching that I do. And oftentimes in a session, I'll be listening to somebody, we'll be going back and forth. And again, I'm fully present and fully engaged, but something will strike me as a little flag. And I don't yet know what that flag is telling me. I'm just alerted. And very often I'll say, can we take a pause? Can we just sit right here with this? What's been shared, what's been said? And oftentimes I'll invite in a meditation for the both of us to connect more fully with our own breath, with our own bodies, and then to allow the discovery process to unfold. So there is an engagement in the unknowing. There's an engagement in, I don't yet know. I don't feel as connected as maybe I could right now, or that there's more to discover. And so again, mindfulness is just paying attention to what is. And so sometimes we're aware of the limitations. That's still mindfulness. I can be aware that I'm distracted and I'm still, in a sense, absolutely being mindful, right? I'm aware of what's going on.
Melissa, we live in a world where I think most people would agree that multitasking is not the ideal way of going about getting things done in your best use of your time. That being said, we still all do it. We're still all victims of multitasking and just indulging in our distractions. What are a few best practices that you've learned, or maybe that you teach people to help them to be mindful, to be present, to not be distracted by their phone when it's buzzing, to not consistently be looking at other things that are going on when they should be focused on the person they're talking to? How do you coach that?
It's a good question. I think it goes back to a really solid morning practice, a morning routine. So even before we're distracted, we've got this opportunity to prioritize ourselves before we start answering the phones. We start getting into that habitual mindset, because a lot of it is just wash, rinse, repeat. We're just going along our habits. And so we really need to take that step back initially to clear the mind, to welcome in the day, to connect with our breaths, to become intentional. And then it becomes a lot easier to course correct throughout the day. We're more aware of when we do get sidetracked, or that urge to do 10,000 things at once. So this actually brings me to something about mindfulness. We've got two ways of understanding it. Well, many ways really, but we've got the formal practice of mindfulness, which is that seated practice of meditation, right? It's just coming into the moment as it is, our breath, awareness, thoughts, all of it. But then there's the informal practice of mindfulness, which is the mindfulness of everyday life. It is being mindful at work. It's mindful while you're having a difficult conversation or a really fun conversation or whatever it may be. So that piece of having it be the stitching that's going through the day is really ours to take in and really ours to practice. So if we reframe 1,000 times a day, so be it. We're still practicing mindfulness.
You know, and kind of a follow-up question, and maybe let me make a statement first. Prior to getting to know you, if you'd have asked me what mindfulness is, I probably would have jumped around and gotten to some type of definition about sitting down in the morning in a quiet space and being quiet and breathing, you know, for 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just being present. And I think that probably kind of goes along to the formal part of what you're talking about. I'm probably getting it, you know, I'm leaving so much out of it, but that's just my ignorance and not understanding it. But what I really like about what you said with the informal aspects of it, really it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, totally. It's not only a lifestyle, but it's a brain rewiring. I mean, truly, the research with mindfulness is so just fascinating at this point that they have seen and studied brains of meditators, both monks, everyone from monks to beginner meditators. and how different structures of the brain are actually changing. It's called neuroplasticity. So yes, it's a lifestyle, but it really has so many far-reaching advantages for not only our physical health, but our ability, our cognitive abilities, our creative processes. So 100% lifestyle, yes.
So I can't, one of the things that I really appreciate about, understanding mindfulness and meditation, something that I've just really started to explore probably in the past, oh gosh, maybe 5 years or so. And that's even like on and off for a very long time. But it's something that I found that when I'm really into it, when I'm really practicing and focusing on it, it really does just change your life. But one of the areas I feel like I don't know why this isn't implemented earlier. Maybe you have some feedback on it, but like with children, I have two young daughters and they've come up on this show before, but to see them when they need to kind of be more mindful or calm down, or situational awareness is something I'm really big on with them, like understanding you're in the moment. So why do you feel like that's not really that integrated into what seems to be something so beneficial, especially for kids?
So the good news is it is beginning to be integrated. It
Right.
certainly wasn't that way when you and I went to school. Certainly not, but now it absolutely is. There are so many programs across not only the country, but internationally that work on mindfulness in schools. There's a program called Mind Up that Goldie Hawn, of all people, is a big part of. Even in our local community in Dallas, there's this amazing school called Momentous Institute, which I'm actually curious if you guys would know about that, right? So Momentous is a huge pioneer of integrating meditation in the school time, school days for the kids. And they're seeing that what they're linking that's really, really interesting is the performance aspect. Their standardized test scores improve. Their admittance into colleges is very high. They have really great metrics over at Momentous Institute, and there are other schools here in DISD. I was actually part of a program that helped train teachers to teach mindfulness in schools. So it's definitely on the rise because people are seeing that the benefits are just pretty comical.
And I know you've done a lot of work with companies and going and speaking of that. And I think that's the first time that you and I actually met, was like outside of, the different things, is you gave a presentation and to a group that I was part of. And I just remember going through the exercise, and the rest of the day, I was like, that was awesome. Like I needed more of that in my life. And that's really what kickstarted me into thinking a little bit more about this. So and we're going to explore this journey from everything, but if you had a tip just right off the bat for someone they're saying like they're watching this, right, this podcast or this show already, and they're like, what's the first thing I can do? Maybe, what's that beginner, what's that baby step that someone can take to starting a practice?
Take one deep breath. Take one deep breath. Place your left hand over your heart space. Place your right hand over your belly. And let's take a complete full breath. Do you know how rare that is?
I just did it and it feels good.
So get to know your breathing. Most people are shallow breathing. They're barely breathing. That has an impact on the way the brain is functioning and firing. It's very often in fight or flight. It's very often in stress. When we take a full deep breath in and out, and hey, if you want to tack on 4 more extra on that, that's 5 deep breaths. It's very likely that you're shifting your autonomic nervous system back into the parasympathetic, which is our natural state of rest and digest. So if someone were to only take one thing from this, take 5. In the movies, they say, take 5. Mm-hmm. Here, I mean 5 deep breaths. You can do that at any point during the day.
I love that. It's so easy. It's so actionable. It's like, and it's probably something because I've, dealt with my own stress and anxiety and whatever that may be, is that is something that I lean back onto, even if I'm doing a rough physical workout or like a, active jogger, runner, biker, whatever. But there are times where even when I'm on the bike or I'm on the road, like I switch my mindset from, oh, this is really hard and I have to go to that deep place to get through this, to like, okay, be in the moment, like breathe, breathe.
You just hit the nail on the head. That's mindfulness. That's We can transform any activity, even ones that we have that initial judgment or bias towards, oh my God, I don't want to have to go do fill in the blank. Well, notice that judgment, right? Notice the resistance that we're creating to the present moment, and then the invitation to find the ease again and find the discovery. And especially in working out, I find that too, that my stamina can really increase. It's right when I get to that edge of discomfort. Oh, that's the opportunity, right? I can start to breathe. I can start to increase my cardiovascular awareness, and my physical ability can really grow from that place. So it's both mental, it's physical, it's everything. Our breath really holds the key to absolutely everything. It's such a simple thing, but it is so undervalued and left on the table so very often. So that's my mission, is like, let's talk about it. Let's integrate it. Let's see how cool your life can be, cooler than it already is,
One of the reasons why I was so excited to talk to you kind of goes into something that Sammy and I are very passionate about in terms of what we do with the pursuit of growth and this lifestyle that we're really trying to influence and share with people, and attitude, and really getting into really what's an epidemic in our world, and that's stress, anxiety, depression, fear, all these different things. Yes. We live in a world where the typical person, and I'm speaking in generality, but all the research backs up that we have never lived in a time in modern history where we are more stressed out. Yeah. And so to speak with someone like you that has actionable tools to be able to help people. And so, for instance, if I'm a busy executive and I'm listening to this podcast and I'm asking myself, why should I be listening to this? Why is mindfulness important to me? Just ask yourself, how is stress and anxiety negatively infecting my life? And how am I allowing it to just become a major obstacle in what I'm trying to accomplish? And you talk about the breathing, and that's such a big part of being able to help control that. What are some other actionable items, tips, tools that people can do to really hone in on mindfulness, to be able to balance or to be able to handle the stress and the anxiety that comes along with this world that we're living in?
Yeah, so I'd like to step back and answer it kind of from a different perspective, but then answer your question too, so when we are stressed or we're in sort of a go rushed mentality, we're really not thinking at our best. And I think that's a big takeaway for someone who is a busy executive and has a lot of leadership within their company and all of it. Very simply, just a little bit of neuroscience. The part of the brain that is overly stimulated when we're stressed out is the amygdala. The amygdala was never, ever, ever designed for comprehensive, big picture thoughtfulness, good leadership decisions and focus and decision making. No, it never, ever was intended for that. The amygdala is there to save us. It's there to fight. It's there to flee. It's there to protect ourselves. It is not there to run chronically the way it does, to your point, the chronic stress. So people need to really take that in. You think you're doing really great, and you probably are. If you're already at that place in your company, you're doing fairly well. But it's like you've got one foot on the gas and another on the brake. You're not at all tapping into your genius, your real strengths. They come when we slow down. So that's the big message for a busy executive that thinks, I don't need this. This sounds woo-woo. The research is so robust that that argument does not hold water anymore. And I have no problem going in. I talk to lawyers, big groups of lawyers, accountants, you name it, very sort of a conservative type individuals that when I show them the neuroscience, everyone is quiet. Everyone's mouths, jaws drop, and they listen, because when we get to slow the breathing down, when we talked about the parasympathetic nervous system before, what starts to happen is the brain starts to fire and wire differently. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that's responsible for all your executive functioning. So that's better decision-making, focus, the ability to see the full picture of things. These are the tools you need as a high-performing executive. And so just by slowing the breathing down, we're stopping the amygdala that, like, I gotta react, I gotta go, do this, that, and we're coming into a more composed place. Then it gets even better. Prefrontal cortex is not where the party ends. When we enter flow state, that's the place where the real magic happens, okay? That's really 5 neurotransmitters all firing together, and we're bypassing the need to think. There's that sense, and I know you guys have been in this place of when you're in the zone or in flow state, especially when you play sports, you know, you're kind of in it. There's a sense of knowing without trying to think, you know, it's just like, oh, in the moment, you just know it, you know what to say, you know what to do, you know how to handle a situation. That's flow state. And what's happening with that is seemingly disparate parts of the brain are starting to also communicate with one another. So you're putting yourself in the best possible position through your breath to be the most innovative and creative. I don't know about it. I mean, I really don't. To me, it just makes so much sense.
Well, to share a story, I've talked a lot on this podcast and this show about Vogel Alcove, the organization that I worked for and that Sammy worked for many, many years. And we talk about executive function a lot because we work with homeless children and homeless families. And stress and trauma, like you mentioned, especially in young children, just rewires the brain and just sets it up for many, many difficult challenges and developmental delays. And then in older individuals, adults, it just causes so many challenges in terms of being able to make good decisions because our executive function is inhibited because we're in stress and trauma. And when you're in stress and trauma, you know, whether it's the cortisol that's being released in your body, and you're in that fight or flight mode. And we tell a story often. We had a mom about a year ago that literally was doing every single quote unquote right thing and getting her life back on track. She was hitting every milestone, you know, got the degree, got the job, got the apartment, was just flourishing, quote unquote flourishing, but she was still, as a result of the environment of her life, the trauma that she had been in, she was still under a lot of stress in her life. And one morning we got a phone call and she quit her job because her car wouldn't start. Now I'm imagining for most people listening, if your car didn't start this morning, the first thing you would do is probably not call your boss and say, I quit. But for her, it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. She was just overwhelmed and just, she couldn't handle it anymore. And so to make a very long story short, you know, our caseworkers talked to her and said, well, hey, first thing, let's get the job back. And let's just talk through that we kind of jumped to conclusions and just made a tough choice because we were stressed. And we sent a mobile mechanic to her place. And for $8.25, they rewired her battery that had come loose and problem solved. But when you're under that stress, you're not making good decisions. And I think what's interesting when you were telling that story, maybe this wasn't me being mindfulness because I started wondering, but I started thinking about in my life how I make really poor decisions when I'm stressed or I'm not in that flow state where I'm being creative because I'm just so focused on achieving, checking boxes, that I'm not at my best.
Yes.
And I think I just wanted to share that because I think that's such a useful benefit for people listening. Is there's so much advantage to just ultimately what you said, I wrote this down, just slow down.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I do want to mention something about your story. It really is so impactful. I used to also work at a women's shelter, this is years ago, for almost 5 years, and working with the women there, doing meditation groups for these women who've been sexually assaulted, domestic violence, all of it. And I mean, trauma in the brain is very, very real. And it is a very different brain that you're looking at. When someone like one of your clients had that happen, like even something in children, they've noticed that there's it's called the corpus callosum, and it's what separates the right hemisphere from the left hemisphere of the brain. They've done brain scans of traumatized kids, and that sheath, that like lining that separates the hemispheres, is thinner. I mean, just even from an early age, trauma is very serious on a person's brain. And so that re-traumatization, the PTSD, things like that, that's that overstimulated amygdala. And so there is work that can be done. And it just, all of this does work, but it does take a lot of patience and awareness to really work with someone. It was great that you guys were there to support her, but really beginning to feel safe in a body that has never felt safe before, and in a world that never felt safe. That is the task of good counseling. I didn't mention, but I am also a licensed professional counselor. So I do have a big interest in trauma and stress and all of these things, but see it from a couple different perspectives too.
Yeah, it's interesting because Greg and I, before the show started and right before you hopped on, I'd say one of the things that I've always appreciated about being able to have conversations with you and being part of a group dynamic, whatever that may be, is that it really shows that you're really in tune with who you are and your practice and what your practice, what you preach, I should say, because like we'll ask a question and you just did it earlier too. You're like, I'm going to look at it from this other angle real quick. And I've always appreciated that. And it actually has worked with me. Now I start to say, I've started to do that as well. And I think that goes back to some of the things you were saying there, is like being mindful and aware. It's not just like meditation, right? Like just that one piece. There's so much more to it. And you've been illustrating that throughout this time that we've been talking. But I think one of the areas that's really stood out to me is that you're still able to provide a challenging thought, right? It's not just woo-woo stuff, that you would think, right? It's like the science, all that you just talked about really helps me fire, because I'm a very scientific minded type person. So, I used to think that meditation was just the woo-woo stuff, like, oh, that's not for me. That's not for me. But then you really start to understand that it's your body, like your what's it like? The chemicals inside you, like everything about it all links back to like kind of an interconnected likeness between everything.
Totally, 100%. Yeah. I appreciate those kind words too. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to also point out something too that we talked about, because I wanted to learn more. You teased us with this, and so I want to go back to the pictures on your wall behind you, because we were like, hey, those look awesome. And then you said like, oh, these are the what were they again?
Mindfulness pillars.
Mindfulness pillars.
Pillars are like the foundations of your mindfulness practice. And they are both the qualities or the attributes that you bring to your practice, but they're also the things that you get to learn about through the practice. So in no particular order, they are patience, acceptance, trust, letting go, beginner's mind, non-judgment, and non-striving. And then we've got 2 bonus pillars, which are gratitude and generosity. So if we just looked at those and picked one as a practice, that would be your mindfulness practice. Just practicing patience, right? Practicing letting go. I mean, that could keep one, fully occupied for one's entire life, right? Now, with these pillars, they're all close cousins, right? Acceptance and letting go kind of have the same, feel to them, but they're all really unique and specific. And I've done trainings on these where we go through these for days and hours, like different sections. And so this would be a short overview, but I'm happy to hear from you guys too. Like, which out of all of those, which really resonated for you?
The one that I wanted to get your take on is, tell me a little bit about what gratitude means to you. And then I'll share a little bit more about why that particular pillar has played an important role in my life.
It's the easiest way to shift your energy. I think we've talked about this before. You can't simultaneously be worried and grateful. Can't. It's impossible. So if for a tip and a takeaway for someone, the moment you notice that your tail's spinning, you're just in a place, just stop. Do you have eyes? Can you see? Can you hear? Do you have legs? Are you walking? Do you have a house? Stop it. Be grateful. It's just these simple things. But when we start to flood our brains like that, again, the brain is starting to fire and wire differently. There's a different part of the brain that fires up and lights up when we're in a place of gratitude. And then law of attraction, we then start to pull to us energetically more things to be grateful for. We start to actually receive more. So there is so much happening on a quantum level, on a quantum field, that happens as a result of truly allowing yourself to feel gratitude. Like, I feel grateful right now for you guys and how cool this is that we get to talk. Like, it's awesome, it's a beautiful thing.
I love that. And I'm a believer that I think if challenged, I think the average person could probably list things they're grateful for 24 hours if they really, really put the depth behind it, and understanding there are so many small, minute things that truly are blessings in our lives. But one of the things that I've recently started, Melissa, and I want to get your take on this. And yes. I actually have written a blog that will go out this week, unless you tell me this is complete bullshit and I need to back up. Which I may.
I doubt
this has been something that's been of value to my life for the last several years. So I think when most people talk about what they're grateful for, they tend to list their comforts, their home, their family, their friends, their security, which are all extremely important things to be grateful for. But I've started looking at my trials and my challenges and the things that I'm uncomfortable with in my life, and finding how I can be grateful for those things. And what I mean by that is, and I think this is maybe kind of a little bit deeper dive into gratitude, but for instance, if I'm challenged with a tough situation with a friend, well, how am I growing personally to be able to lead them through that situation? And even though that situation is messy and hard, what am I learning? How am I using that for my personal growth? If there's a travesty that's happened in my life, how am I using that to be grateful, to say, how can I now help somebody else in the future that may go through that? So the gratitude doesn't replace the trial. It just gives me that silver lining, or maybe that perspective, that perseverance to be able to move forward. And so I start challenging myself, no matter what happens, tough days at work, difficult people, just those things that are completely out of my control, where can I find something to be grateful for? And when I do that, and let me just preface this, that it is a difficult thing to do and I fail often. But when I succeed, I feel like I take the grip of that trial away from me and I bring that power back into myself, and I'm now in control despite the challenge. I'd love to just hear your thoughts on that.
100%. Hallelujah. Amen. Yes. Yes.
I can still publish the blog. You're not going to like tell everyone it's complete crap.
Yes. Yes. And now that I'm aware, because Sammy has shown me that I do this, I'm going to share just my take, right? My little different perspective on it, which is totally in alignment, I believe, with what you've just said, which is gratitude allows us to go into no mind. It allows us to break free of a polarized view of life, meaning this is a good thing, this is a bad thing, this is easy, this is hard. Right? This was hard. Well, what you've done is your lens that you're seeing everything is through gratitude, right? So in a sense, there is no bad, there's no hard. When everything is a gift of gratitude, you are living in a state that is, as Zen Buddhists would say, the non-thinking mind, the I don't know mind. To live in the I don't know mind means there's no duality. We're not constantly having something that we're fighting against or worried about or struggling with. It's just all one thing. And within that, we embrace it. You love it just as much as you love sitting out in front of the pool with your, margarita in hand. Really, there's no difference there you go. But if you can live your life, and this is perhaps a tall order, right? I mean, I'm on this path and aspiring for this all the time, but certainly I fall short. But the idea is that that's the lens. That's mindfulness. That's the lens that we see everything. So even that distinction that I gave you early on between formal and informal, I already set you up to see it differently, but really it's just one thing. It's mindfulness all across the board. Me sitting in formal meditation should be the very same as me going out and picking up my dog's poop. And you know what? It has become that practice, because I was resistant to it for a while, picking up the poop. But when I treat that practice just like me sitting in meditation, it's all one thing. So I think that's the point you're making, Greg.
Yeah, I think it's viewing our life's trials as opportunities. And I think you've got to have a foundational element of understanding that the things that are hard in life can make us better in life. And I think for me, there's got to be a foundational element that for me, I think is derived from my faith. And that my faith leads me to think that my primary purpose is to be serving. And so if these things can always make me stronger, then it allows me to be better in serving. And if I can truly rest in that and believe that, then everything kind of falls in line. And you say it much more eloquently than I do. I kind of say it in the dum-dum version. No. But that's, I think that's kind of the perspective that I've adopted and really worked towards. And, I go back to something Sammy shared with me that I think makes it really easy to translate, which there's a Navy SEAL. Who was it? Jocko? What was Jocko's last name, Sammy?
Willink.
Jocko Willink. He has a video that he talks about when he's faced with challenges or hardships, his answer is good.
That's right. I remember you.
And the reason he does that is because it's a mindset of, okay, how is this going to make me better? And I think that was such a basic, simple way of saying what I've been working on these last couple of years. When I saw that video, I was like, that's the layman's easy way to do it. And it has so much impact for a guy like me that, again, when I face trials, it's good. How can I grow with this? And again, it's just that different level of thinking. And it's served me very well.
Accepting things as they are, not as we would like them to be, but as they are in the present moment without judgment, allows us to step into the opportunity that really is there. If that happens to be, oh my God, I have to level up, I've got to dig deep, I've got to experience something, that's what you're called to do in that moment. And there's that big picture, that freedom in that. What I hear you saying, and what I think the Jocko thing is all about, is entering into that space. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it God space, spirit. You see how there's no differentiation when you're in those places? It's just one big thing. You can call it being in the zone, right? Flow state. There's so many ways that it all lines up, but we're talking about the same thing. It's full on embracing that moment for what it is.
I've heard Greg talk about it, and I'm glad I shared that video with him too, because it was just it's that little thing that I even use it with my kids, and I always harken back to my kids a lot with this too, because I'm trying to set them up for success without being too judgmental of myself, of like, oh, I hope I'm doing this all right, because I know I'm not doing everything right. But I'm like, if I can just place a nugget here or there that's going to help along the way. But good is one of those. Another thing that with my youngest is, she's actually really taken to this, is she would say, I can't. I was like, well, you can't when you say you can't. And it's this automatic, I know that there's some psychology in the brain that shuts down when you say I can't, right? So you have to be open. So I kind of shared with her the good story and that kind of stuff. But I think it happened, a couple of weeks ago, where one day my oldest said, I can't. And then my youngest said, you can't if you can't, if you say you can't. And I was just like, huh, like that worked. Yeah. So
brainwashing.
So a little sidetrack on that, but one of the ones that I wanted you to point out, and I wrote it down quickly, so I scribble like a 2-year-old. But one of the mindfulness pillars is that beginner's mind. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That one, I've heard all the other ones, but I've never heard that. And I think, and I'll tell you a short story, and I would love your take on this, is I think that for the longest time, in my life, I had FOMO, the fear of missing out. And so, but the fear of missing out wasn't necessarily about just like, what are my friends doing? I can't go do them. It's that my brain could not, my eyes, my ears, my fingers on like a phone, I could not get enough information. There's too much information. I just love learning, and I want it all. Like, and gosh, why have I never heard of this? Why have I never thought of it? So I started to reframe that little fear that I had by thinking like, okay, let me look at it with a fresh pair of eyes. Instead of saying like, oh, I can't believe that I've never heard of this before. It's like, wow, I'm experiencing this for the first time. Let me open my eyes and let me take a step back. So tell me a little bit more about that one, because that one really piqued my interest.
Okay, I love this. So you know how at the very beginning of our conversation, Greg asked me what is the opposite of mindfulness, right? And how that contrast opened up mindfulness even more. So what I would offer to you is, what about everything that you already do know? Like, I know how to brush my teeth. I know how to tie my shoes. What if you brought the same spirit of a beginner's mind to everything? Mm-hmm. Right? That changes. The what doesn't change, but the how changes. How you experience something changes. And so that's what I'm just going to leave it there. on the beginner's mind, because the beginner's mind is like, it's a curiosity. You know, it's to be genuinely curious about something and realizing that everything is an opportunity to go, oh my God, even the breath, even your breath that you've had since you were a wee little one and you came into the world. We've been breathing this whole time, but you know, becoming that curious about your own breath in your own body, if you can do that, just imagine how interesting this whole world becomes.
Love it. So Melissa, when we read your bio at the very beginning of our conversation, we mentioned that you will be joining season 2 of the new reality series, The Social Movement. Tell us how that came to be. Tell us what the social movement is and what can we expect to see when we watch you on Amazon Prime.
As the last question, I'll say, I don't know. We haven't started filming. Actually, we were going to film in October of this year, but actually before that, we were supposed to film in June of this year. But of course, with COVID, everything kind of got derailed. So I don't yet know what you will see. And in fact, season 1 should be coming out, I think they said Earth Day of 2021. So April 21st, I think, ish. So look out for it there for season 1. How it happened, just chance. I happened to know one of the associate producers, and he and I had a conversation, which then led to a conversation with the executive producer and multiple conversations for hours at a time. And just getting a feel for him and the mission of what he was trying to do. And I think you guys would appreciate this because the way he explained it, it just made total sense. He said, imagine a TED Talk plus action. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So what he's trying to do, his name is Chris Lavoie, he's bringing a whole bunch of different people, different experts in their respective fields together, and there's 6 teams, and we have 4 days to tackle a major world issue. And you know, this year I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, I think there's going to be something around racism. You know, I'm not sure, honestly. We don't really know until we get there, but it's just kind of like this. You know, you get some interested people with differing backgrounds in a room, and all our job is to dedicate time and space with the synergy of these different creative minds coming together. The idea is hopefully something good will come from that. Some real tangible solution can come from that. So I'm super honored to get to be a part of it. I'm sure I'll learn a lot. And yeah, I think it'll be an amazing experience.
Where do you see your biggest strength influencing those conversations, no matter what the topic might be?
Gosh, Greg.
Because I think I know the answer. How about that?
Okay, what is the answer?
Well, I would love to hear your general thoughts first, and then I'll give you my opinion.
Okay, I'll say this. If I can go in like this, right? Open, curious, with all those pillars that we just spoke about, and just simply pay attention and listen, there'll be a spark, right? It's not trying to force that, like, here are my skills, here's what I can do, da 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 da, and try to like throw it down. No, that is certainly not going to work. It never works in life, so it wouldn't work there. So I think it's just to show up and be authentic and be real and allow the process to guide me.
So my thoughts, I think, are aligned with what you just mentioned.
Okay.
I think one of your biggest strengths is you're able to bring out the best in other people.
Oh my gosh.
That's not to say that you won't have a lot to add just personally to whatever topic is there, but you mentioned there's experts from all these different fields coming together. You have 4 days to work together to be able to come up with your TED Talk plus the actionable steps with that. I think what you're really good at is being able for people that may be used to being the drivers and being the people that are the decision makers, to take a step back and listen, to breathe, to do every single thing that we've talked about this past 50 minutes, and to really allow that atmosphere to be a safe place for people to then be able to be curious and have candor and ultimately take ego out of things and come up with the best solutions in the time available. And I think that's where your genius will definitely take shape.
So I have to thank you. I have full body soul shivers up and down my legs and my arms. Thank you. That was a real gift. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
I agree. I think it's going to be amazing to see you there and taking part in that. And because I do value the fact that you have truly always listened. And, you know, even whenever like we've been doing Zoom meetings or whatever that may be, it's like, I know that Melissa's listening, like you're listening and you always provide the value. And I think that's, again, to piggyback of what Greg said, is that I do think that sometimes, you know, that's the most important thing that's missing in, especially in group discovery and group decisions, is just the fact that instead of just trying to figure out the answers, sometimes you just have to listen. So I think they're really going to utilize your expertise and able to do that.
Oh, thanks, guys. Group hug. Bring it in.
group hug. So I want to touch on something real quick, Greg. Before I let you get there, because we want to be respectful of time as well. But there's something that Melissa and I had shared a long time ago, and then we'll get on to the rest of the stuff. But I know you're a sports fan.
Yeah.
And I know that I think one of your favorite teams is the San Antonio Spurs, correct?
This is so weird. Okay, yeah, but I haven't really watched it in a long time. But guess what I have on? I have on San Antonio Scorpions, which is a soccer team from San Antonio.
Nice.
Random.
I remember at one point in time you were working with athletes as well. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that. Not to derail too much, but I just wanted to, that's always stuck with me because I think I see it more and more prevalent in sports today, where either a coach or a very high performer MVP caliber athlete has incorporated that, and they're more vocal now. Like they're like, oh, I practice mindfulness or meditation, whatever it is. Now it's again outside that tough boy locker room, it's being, or inside it, it's being more accepted.
Absolutely. I think it goes back to Phil Jackson with the Lakers, you know, unabashedly put that out there with the team. And so, you know, a lot of those guys, you know, Kobe, rest in peace, a lot of those guys really embraced it. And I think it probably proliferated from there. I know LeBron is a meditator. So when you get that kind of star power backing something like this, it's pretty incredible. But really, I mean, we're talking from every single sport. You've got Novak Djokovic is apparently a meditator. There's so many that I can't even name. But for me personally, I've not worked with the Spurs, although I wouldn't be opposed to working with the Spurs, but I've worked with professional athletes, professional basketball players and hockey players, and younger kids that are athletes. And you know, it's all the same. It's all of these things. And really the issue tends to be getting too much in your head, that flow state and being in the zone and trusting and not having the fear come in, or even when you're losing, what's the story that we're telling us? And so it's all of those things. It's the ability to take that step back, to see things as they are, right? Not having the filter of, oh my God, we're behind, and oh my God, I just messed up, and you know, all of that. So it's everything that we've talked about tonight, but within the context of competing and being on a team. Sometimes the issues are, you're okay, but your teammates around you have given up. So then how do you rally around, and how do you encourage that kind of energy to guys that have given up? And so there's mirror neurons. That's like a whole other topic, but basically what you're thinking and feeling is contagious. And so that's something, when people start to learn all the things that they have at their fingertips beyond just I can breathe and reframe, but the ability to really have a positive influence around your teammates, to really take the energy up to another level, that's where you can really see the push into winning when you're behind. And so there's a lot of psychology behind it too, but it's super interesting. And I love working with athlete clients because they're usually pretty disciplined, which is pretty cool because they'll do the homework. They'll actually do what you ask them to do.
Well, Melissa, as we start to wind down our conversation, let me say this, and I'll speak for Sammy because I know he's in 100% agreement with me. We have to have you back on soon because I feel like we didn't even scratch the surface of the depth of mindfulness and all the things that we talked about today. And there's so many beneficial and actionable tips and tools that I think will add to people's lives that we have to have you come back on. And I want to get real nerdy, like real deep nerdy in the brain science, all that kind of stuff. Because I really think that's what gets people to realize this is a competitive advantage and this is something that will make me better.
Yep. Yes, I'm in. I'll come back anytime.
Awesome. Well, we're not done with you just yet because we have a couple questions that we want to ask you. And then Sammy and I are going to share 3 takeaways that we have each taken from this conversation to share with our audience that impacted us during this conversation. So I'll start with the first question, and it's subjective, but during your life, Melissa, what has been one of your favorite actions or methods or maybe lessons you've learned in terms of your self-development and growth, maybe particularly in mindfulness?
Oh my gosh. There's so many things. I think for me, the thing that's really hitting home is being a recovering perfectionist and a recovering type A personality and a kind of more prone to anxiety type human. Learning the non-striving, that was one of the pillars that we spoke about. Learning really the finesse of less is more, really coming into that balance that you don't have to grip the bats so tightly. You don't have to overdo, overstrive, overwork. Sometimes it's about the feminine energy of receiving and allowing back. Whether you're a male or a female or describe yourself in a different format, we have these energies of masculine energy and feminine energy. And so I think for me, part of my ongoing journey is really trusting that process, that I don't necessarily have to keep, doing this and this and this and this with something. It's really okay to allow the universe's divine creation to really work. And it's less about the ego. It's about really getting in with that the bigger I, right, than the little me.
Love it. That's a great answer. One of the other questions we like to ask is, and this is a little bit different, but can you share some advice that has stuck with you over the years, just in general?
Can I just sit with that because that's such a great question? Wow. So many things want to be said right now. I'm getting listen more, talk less. I think also, for some reason, my grandfather, who's been dead since the early 90s, is coming to mind right now, which is interesting. I think it's to really appreciate where you've come from. I'm a second generation born American. Like, when you really think about that, that's kind of crazy. My grandfather was an immigrant, and he came here. Well, first off, he was an orphan at age 9 and had a 7-year-old sister and a 5-year-old brother. So from that point forward, he was the guy. I'll spare you the story, but he was born in Poland, ended up getting to Mexico, and then coming here to America, but became, get this, an entrepreneur in a little town. Sammy will appreciate this. Maybe you will know, Greg, but you know Refugio?
I know it very well.
Okay. You as well, Greg? Little South Texas town? Well, in any event, my grandfather settled there and had the town's only, they called it the economy store, and it was just like a dry goods store. But like, he literally came from nothing and had no education. He just had a drive. And I feel like I have so much to thank from the people who came before me. And I think that it's just appreciating the journey that's been already taken on, and then what I'm given and what I need to do to move that forward for them.
I'll say, and I don't say this often, but that's beautiful. I love that quote. That gave me, what'd you say, soul shivers? Yeah, it's like that gave me the soul shivers too. And the fact that, Refugio, Texas is back down South Texas where I'm from. I had many epic battles with some of the athletes down in Refugio, Texas.
Bobcats, right?
That's right. They're orange. Yep. Their colors are orange and black, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. They actually do very well when it comes to football, high school football. Like, they go to state and all of that. Like, they're really good.
I threw discus against a guy. And when I say that this guy looked like an Adonis, like a Greek statue, he did. And here I am bumbling around, but I beat him a couple of times. So we had our epic battles. I'll just put my little feather in my cap on there.
Nice. That's awesome.
Melissa, this is a unique question. What advice would you give your future self 10 years from now?
Oh, what a good, juicy question. Hold on.
I figured that you would really appreciate that one.
I was waiting all day for this one question. No pressure.
So what would I tell my future self? What advice would I give my future self?
What advice, or even just that? What would you tell your future self? Advice, conversation, whatever it might be.
None of it mattered. All the crap you were worried about. See, look at you. You're here now, and you don't even remember that thing that happened like on June 7th of 2020. That weird, like, practice embracing and enjoying it. It is all good. And you're going to look back and say, damn, girl, you look good.
I love it.
So much of it goes to gratitude, right?
I appreciate. And then when I'm 60 something, right? Because I'm about to turn 47, right? So then when I'm 57, and then when I'm 67, I'll look at 57 like, damn, girl.
I love it.
Well, Sammy, do you want to share some of your takeaways from our conversation?
Do I mean I have a
Oh, I thought you meant me. I was like, yeah, I've got it.
Well, you too.
Yeah, we're gonna circle back on that because I love anytime we can get feedback from anything. But here's my list here. I've got scratch pad full of notes. My number one thing is, and I'm struggling to read my 2-year-old handwriting again, but it says number one was, can we just sit right here with this? Like, I've never heard that before. Like, I've heard take it in, like that, but I've never heard something phrased that way, which really impacted me because I'm going to do that. I'm just, can we just sit right here and just let it marinate, almost just let it sit and just see. So that was one thing. That was a good takeaway, like actionable tip for me. The second one was the 5 breaths, the take 5 deep breaths, just do that. And I kind of cheat a little bit with the Apple Watch. It'll tell you like, hey, you take a few minutes to breathe, or take 1 minute to breathe. And, I'll look at it from time to time, dismiss it. But then sometimes it just hits me at that right time. I'm like, you know what? I will. Let me just do this. And then, someone walks into your office, you're like, hold on, I'm breathing here. Yeah. And then there was the last one I had was see things as they are, which kind of really goes right back to the very first statements that we were making, was just the understanding mindfulness, is to see them as they are, without that judgment, without that lens, without that filter, which Greg knows I speak a lot about just when in speaking about situational awareness and timing and lenses and filters that you see through, but just to see things as they are and just kind of be open.
I love that. Can I say one quick thing about what you said?
Yes.
So let's say you were going to take your 1 minute in your office of the breathing, and let's say in 30 seconds in, someone came in. That's part of what you get to continue to breathe with. And see, that's the cool thing. It's not negating what is happening in the present moment. That's really, I'm really being kind of coachy and drilling down, but that's really mindfulness practice. It's like, that's not going to take away your deep breath. Who cares if Greg annoys you and interrupts you and walks into your office? I know it's happened, right? but you're, if you first and foremost, it's your breathing. It does come what may, this person, that person, this is what we're doing, whether you're by yourself or someone comes in. It's not like you're gonna, no, still deep breathing. But anyway, I just had to say it.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to do that next time for sure.
Yeah, nice.
Well, on a side note, I wonder how many people in listening to this show are focusing on their breathing right now, because I know I have been pretty much this entire conversation. So kudos. It's amazing how sometimes just having these things brought forth allow us to start putting them into practice, which is really cool. I'll also state that one of the challenges with having Sammy share his 3 takeaways first is that he typically takes 2 of mine. So then I have to scramble back to my other ones that I'm like, these are really good too. But I think I've got 3 that not only will I share on this as a recap, but I will take with me here on out. But one was a generalization of what you said, but it's combining 2 things. That really, mindfulness isn't just this woo-woo thing that you do to try to get to this feeling. It's an actual competitive advantage in whatever it is that you're doing. And I think just the lessons, the stories that you shared point that out. Maybe my biggest takeaway, Melissa, is when you were talking specifically about athletes, but I think this goes to any type of team, business, or family. I think any relationship that you're a part of, when you talked about the way that you think and you feel is contagious. And I know I see other people change based on how I show up. And I know that sometimes, let me rephrase that. I know often I change based on the way other people show up. So to be mindful of that, wow, amazing.
Yeah.
And then the third takeaway that I had was something that we just touched very lightly on, and I guarantee you we could do an hour on if we wanted to. And that was when you talked about the morning routine.
Oh, yeah.
Just the importance of, I think, getting yourself ready, because all these things we talked about, I think so much of it, and you allude to this, come from putting in good habits into place. And I think for mindfulness to be a lifestyle, there's habits that you have to work towards. And I think that starts with a morning routine that is habitual, that you take time to put into place, and that it's one of the most important, if not the most important part of your day. And that was a big takeaway for me, because I've always told people how important my morning routine is, but yet I can get really wishy-washy on it. And it just really just hit me that, man, Greg, get that morning routine down, because it sets the tone for the rest of your day.
I'm going to send you guys a journal. So a good friend of mine has this journal, and this is probably a good segue to like closing off, because I think we're probably near your time. But so this is called the Pepper Planner. My dear friend Megan Lyons, she's a health and nutritionist coach, has developed this, but I've been sending it to clients, and I absolutely love it, and I use it. And I don't know if you can see, but do you see how it says wake up, and there's all these things: water, affirmations, knowledge, exercise, unwind, positivity. There's a space for gratitude, your goal, tracking everything. And so, and there's places for quarterly goals that you review. I literally review quarterly goals every morning. Like, you do too? Yeah. Well, that's a game changer. And so I'm a big fan of this, and I'm actually giving these away right now to some people that join my membership community, but that's a whole other story. But I'm going to give you guys these because I think you're going to really enjoy them. I don't know if you have a journal for the morning yet, but when you're done, you can use this one.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, that does lead us into the segment. This is an area in which we, number one, we want to give people the opportunity to learn more about you on their own times, be it if they want to reach out for one-on-one consultations or coaching or whatever that may be. But tell people where, take this time, tell people where they can find you, how they can get a hold of you. We'll also link everything in the notes for the show on YouTube, and then via the actual videos as well.
Well, first off, before I do that, thank you to both of you. My takeaway is that it's been really delightful and really fun to talk about mindfulness with two guys that I call friends and really have a lot of respect for. So thank you for making this super fun, super enjoyable. This might be my favorite podcast that I've ever done.
We'll take it.
Honestly, it's been really, really fun. I've really enjoyed it. So kudos to you guys. You guys are a great team on bouncing off. It never felt like, awkward or weird. You were perfect. So anyway, I really thoroughly enjoyed this. Where to find me? My website is yourmindfuledge.com, and there you'll see everything. You'll get a sense of everything. I am doing this new rollout as of the beginning of November, and it is a membership community. And so it's every best practice that I've developed over the last 15 years of doing this work, and really condensing it and formatting it in a membership program, which offers a very different price point for people. So I'm really excited for that, and it's already taken off, and it's already really, really enjoyable and really fun, and I love it. I'd love for people to check it out, ask questions. I'm always available. Instagram handle is Your Mindful Edge, also your_mindful_edge.
Awesome. Well, and you can learn more about the pursuit of growth at our website, www.livetpg.com. where not only can you see this episode and watch it over and over and over and over again, but you can see our other YouTube shows. You can read our blog that goes out weekly. You can buy our book, The Pursuit of Growth, A Lifestyle to Flourish in Today's World. And of course, you can follow us on social media, and all of our links are available on our website. Melissa, I'm not lying when I said earlier today that we could have talked to you for hours and hours and hours. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Will you come back on and join us again so that we can continue this conversation and explore many, many, many other topics that I think people will have a lot of actual takeaways that can really help them in their lives?
Yes. Yes.
I love it. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up tonight. And thank you again for your time. And I can't wait to explore more about your history, more about the bowls that we didn't even get to, because I was super interested in those as well. So how about you take us out with just a little bowl action?
It's a great way to end. So I guess for those that are watching, if you'd like, you can take this moment to soften the eyes, to let the eyes close when you're ready. And why don't we do what we talked about earlier? You can place the left hand over the heart space and allow the shoulders to roll up, back, and down a couple of times. This really opens us up through the chest. And then placing the right hand over the belly. And let's begin by taking your nice, big, deep 4-count breath in and out. Just 4, taking about 5 rounds here. Allowing the breath to return to its normal breathing, placing the hands back in the lap, palms up for more energy, palms down for more anchoring, more grounding. And just noticing the body, the breath, this moment. Feeling your seat, feeling the energy moving up from the base of the spine. Take a moment to be grateful. Flood the mind and the heart with gratitude. I'm grateful for you. Thank you for this time and this opportunity to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
That was awesome. Have a great night.
You
Talk
too.
to you soon.
Bye.